Happy 2026, everyone. Hope you're all having an amazing start to the year. If I'm being honest, my start to the year has been very slow, to say the least. I feel like usually at the start of the year, I'm pretty reinvigorated to get back into work, or I'm motivated with the start of a fresh year. But honestly, the past week, I've been pretty unmotivated, unproductive, just slow. And I think it's because I had such a relaxing holiday break where I pretty much did nothing. I stayed home just lounging a lot, gaming a lot. And I think it's just a little bit of whiplash to go right back into the swing of things. Hopefully I'm not the only person who feels this way with the start of the new year. Starting up this video is honestly the most productive thing I've done in the past week. So with my last video, I obviously talked about reflections on 2025 in gaming, and we talked about all the big releases that happened last year, all my favorite games that I played last year. But in this video, I want to talk about looking forward into 2026 for gaming, what games I plan to personally play, what games I might be skipping. And then I also want to talk about my mindset and intentions with gaming for 2026. I feel like I'm going into the new year thinking a little bit differently about how I want to approach gaming as a whole, because it's such a special and precious hobby of mine that I'm being a lot more intentional with it, I think, this year compared to last year. I think there were a bunch of reflections that I made in the past year that made me want to change a little bit of my habits. The list of intentions, mindsets, resolutions, whatever you want to call them, I think will be helpful to see for people who maybe want to reinvigorate their passion for gaming again, or it might just be fun to see the list for people who are already really into gaming but want to participate in some parts of it. And then I also want to talk about how I plan to put those mindsets and intentions into practice. But first, let's talk about the games that I already plan to play in 2026. So here we are with my backlogged again. If you haven't seen my last video, my backlogged is where I write all my reviews. I log all my games, including what I'm playing right now, what I have played, and what's in my current backlog. And this is my wishlist tab where I put down all the games that I plan to eventually play once they release, or games that I still have yet to buy that I plan to play in the future, like something like Disco Elysium. But the majority of this list is games that are coming out in 2026. So let's actually start from the bottom. Resident Evil Requiem is actually the first major release that I'm really looking forward to this year, but I can't believe it's actually so close now. I am just so excited for how the Resident Evil fandom is going to go ballistic. I think Capcom in general is having a pretty big year this year compared to last year when they were relatively quiet. They have Pragmata coming out in April, very close to Resident Evil, honestly. I played the demo for this game and it's a very unique take on the shooter genre. You basically solve a short puzzle to be able to inflict damage on enemies. And it might sound clunky, but while I was playing the demo, I was actually enjoying it a lot. So I definitely plan to play this. Besides those two big titles for Capcom, they also have the Onimusha title coming out, which I also played the demo for. I don't know quite yet whether I'm going to play that game because I don't play a lot of those action RPG kind of games, and I'm honestly pretty horrible at them, so we'll see. But beyond that too, Capcom also has the Street Fighter movie coming out. I think they're just going to be making a lot of noise this year compared to last year for sure. Mouse PI for Hire is also another game that I've been looking forward to for maybe over a year, I think, at this point. This was supposed to come out last year, but it was delayed. This is a shooter that is inspired by 1930s classic cartoons, and I love the aesthetic for this so much that I was sold on it immediately. Troy Baker is the lead in this game. When I saw this first, I actually thought it was just an idea and it wasn't actually going to become a game, so I was pleasantly surprised to know that it was actually in development. In general, I don't play a lot of shooters, but I think because of the unique aesthetic that this game has, I feel like I have a lot of high hopes for this being not just your regular shooter game. We got Witchbrook coming out also this year, and this is a game that I have very, very, very high hopes for. I believe this game has been delayed multiple times for quite some time now, and it's been in development hell for almost a decade or something. I'm lucky to have found out about it only maybe 2 years ago, because the people who were anticipating it since its announcement, yeah, they've had to wait very, very long for this game. Basically, it's an isometric pixel art game where you go to witch school and live in the city. It's also online co-op, so I'm very curious to see how that works with this kind of setting. I love the amount of detail that looks to be present in this game. Apparently the NPCs all have their own schedules and they don't just like pace back and forth. This game just looks like something that I can sink a lot of hours into on a handheld, and I'm excited to see what kind of like personalization it has with your character. In a similar vein, I'm curious to see if we'll hear anything about Concerned Ape's new game this year. I know it's not going to release for many years, but I just am curious to see if we'll get any news about it or any development updates, because I think it's been quite a bit since the initial announcement now. So I'm like cautiously optimistic for new news, but I don't think we'll be getting anything major this year yet. Ooh, Subnautica 2. Okay, so this one is like kind of sad for me to talk about because I've talked about how Subnautica 1 is one of my favorite games of all time. It's one of those games where I feel like I can play forever and not get bored with it. I love how it approaches like deep sea horror and still has that kind of like life simulation aspect to it. And the exploration is top notch too. I love how many different biomes there are, all the different creatures you can encounter. But in my video talking about games that I plan to play in 2026, when I brought up this game, people were kind enough to point out that the publisher that picked them up are basically prioritizing AI to be the future of the development of their games. Not sure if AI is specifically involved in Subnautica 2, but just knowing that the publisher said that makes me feel a little uneasy. Makes me a little bit sad because I was really anticipating this sequel, but I feel like this might be a skip for me. Okay, so I put Grand Theft Auto 6 here just because I'm actually like, I really don't care at the moment whether this game comes out or not, or whether I will play it. I kind of just put it here because it's obviously one of the most anticipated titles of all time. I have not played the other Grand Theft Auto games. I think I would be willing to play Grand Theft Auto 5. I heard many great things about it, and I think it would be fun for me to play just because I'm from LA. Either way, I feel pretty like lukewarm about like my commitment to picking up this game. And who knows, it might get delayed again, if we're being honest. Ooh, Fatal Frame 2. Okay, this game is coming out soon. It's coming out on March 12th. So I've heard a lot of great things about the Fatal Frame series, and I've been wanting to play the games myself, but to my knowledge, there's no ports or remakes other than this one that's coming out. And it seems like quite a hassle to figure out how to play the original game, so I'm super happy to see that at least the second one is getting a remake. It seems that the Fatal Frame games has quite a cult following around it, so I'm excited to see what makes these games so special. We got Pokemon Pokopia coming out in March. It's kind of hard saying that name. Pokemon's first life simulation game. So I'm excited to play this, but I'm curious to see how this game will match up against games that are in a similar vein, because there's a bunch of like life simulation games that are out there at this point, and I've played a bunch of them, and I hope it's not a situation where the Pokemon name is carrying this game quite a bit. So I just hope that this game has a lot of content and things to do, because if this game is good, I can see myself playing a lot of it on my Switch too. We got Inkombini coming out finally this year. I know this was teased quite a bit for like, I don't know, 2 years, maybe more. This is like a shop simulation game, but it seems that there is a narrative component to it. To me, this game seems to have like a nostalgic vibe to it. I've seen a couple of my own friends be excited for this game because I think it's just been wishlisted and teased for quite a bit now. This seems like a game that I would probably pick up in between larger games when I need just something really relaxing and slow and short in between all these like more intense or long RPGs. Outbound is also coming out this year in Q2. The trailer for this game really hooked me. I thought it was really cool conceptually. It's basically an online co-op game where you build a van and you basically upgrade it and go on road trips with it. It seems that the scale of how much your van can be upgraded seems to get pretty crazy. These kind of simulation games I think are fun on their own, but the fact that it's online co-op makes me feel like this game is going to be even more fun being able to build on a project with your friends. Speaking of online games, Loftia is coming out this year in beta. I'm a Kickstarter backer for this game because I thought that the concept had a lot of potential when I saw the initial videos that they posted. It's basically a couple that started this game and company that wanted to see an MMO inspired by games like Animal Crossing and Stardew Valley and Minecraft. And there are MMOs kind of like that already exist, but I think the aesthetic for this one matched my taste the most. So being able to see Animal Crossing on a global online scale scale with things like community housing and community project just sounds super fun. And they've been cooking for a while, like a couple years now. So I'm excited to see where they're at now. Mixtape is next. This game was supposed to come out last year, I believe, but it was delayed. This game is like a narrative coming of age adventure that has really cool art style. And what hooked me was the fact that the soundtrack seemed to involve a lot of like high profile bands like the Smashing Pumpkins, The Cure. I think a really good soundtrack is more than enough to convince me to try out an indie game, so I'm looking forward to playing this. These two games I'm going to skip over because I believe they're super into development right now and have no chance of releasing in the next year. Okay, so Persona 4 Revival. So the 30th anniversary, I think, the 30th anniversary of Persona is this year, and Atlus is already starting up a lot of promo around the 30th anniversary. They've been posting a bunch of like graphics, and I think they posted a video from like the lead producer saying like, please look forward to a bunch of Persona content this year. And whether that means like just more teasing about Persona 4 Revival or maybe something about Persona 6, I don't know. I don't want to get my hopes up too high for that, but I think we'll definitely see more stuff about Persona 4 Revival and maybe ending in like a release date. I think we'll get a release date for this, and I don't think it's going to be this year. But either way, Persona 4 Golden is my second favorite Persona game, and I think it has the best cast out of the Persona games I've played. So I'm going to play the heck out of Persona 4 Revival when it comes out, but I do think that if you wanted to just play Golden now, you totally can, and it's not like so old that you would have like a horrible time with like the quality of life features. I think it still very much holds up today. I don't know if this game is coming out this year, but this is the follow-up to Bomb Rush Cyberpunk. Beyond, I think the initial trailer, I don't know if they've teased any new content, so I'm not sure if this is going to come out this year. Tomodachi Life Living the Dream, another Nintendo title that is slated to come out very soon. I didn't play the first Tomodachi Life, but I know that many people love that game, so I want to really try out Living the Dream because I don't have a 3DS to try out the first Tomodachi Life. But I love how silly this game looks, like the way that the Miis encounter each other and like talk to each other. It just looks really fun. With the following that this game has, I'm definitely going to be picking up this game. Ooh, Fire Emblem Fortune's Weave. I'm pretty much a type of person who will pick up any new Fire Emblem game at this point because I loved Three Houses so much. But I did pick up Fire Emblem Engage after that, and I hated that game. I thought it was so bad. I thought it was so boring and the story sucks. So I'm willing to just forget that I even picked up that game, and I want to reset with Fortune's Weave. I hope this one's good. I know it's supposed to be connected to Three Houses somehow, so I'm looking forward to that. But I wonder what kind of gameplay it's going to involve because Three Houses obviously has like a unique format with the Three Houses concept, and then I've only played the original Fire Emblem on the GBA beyond that. Reanimal. This is the game that is created by the creators of Little Nightmares 1 and 2. I skipped out on playing Little Nightmares 3 because my friend told me that it was kind of ass. So I was like, okay, I'll just skip out on Little Nightmares 3 and I'll play Reanimal instead. It looks pretty similar to Little Nightmares 1 and 2, and that's what I'm looking for, honestly. And I hope it's actually even scarier than Little Nightmares 1 and 2 because maybe they have a little bit more creative freedom. I would love to see that they keep like the miniature concept of the characters, but make it even scarier. Danganronpa 2x2. So I actually didn't play Danganronpa 2 myself, but I watched a Let's Play of it, and I thought it was insane. There were a lot of insane trials that happen in this game. I wouldn't say I liked it more than 1. There's just something about 1 that I really liked. But yeah, I would say that 2 gets pretty crazy. And I think if you are anywhere near the Danganronpa fandom, you know how crazy the fandom is and how hilarious this is going to be when this game releases. It's going to be a cultural reset. I can promise you that. Before Danganronpa 2x2 comes out, I do plan to play this game, Project Eden's Garden. This is apparently a non-profit Danganronpa fan game where it's completely fan-made, but it looks very high quality, and apparently the soundtrack is really good good too. I heard that this is quite an impressive work, even though it's fan made. So I want to get back into like the Danganronpa mood with playing this first and then go into Danganronpa 2x2. Ontos, I kind of mentioned this in my last video as well. This is by Frictional Games that made games like Soma and Amnesia. This is also a sci-fi game, so it seems to be like a spiritual successor to Soma. So I am very much looking forward to that because Soma was one of my favorite horror games last year. And based on the description for this game, it seems that it's kind of in the same realm of like existential horror, which I think is the highlight of Soma's because I don't think a lot of horror games approach horror like that. So I'm really looking forward to the themes of this game. Orbitals. Okay, this was shown at the last Game Awards and it's that kind of split fiction. It takes two kind of gameplay, but in like a retro anime style. Like many others, I was immediately drawn by the aesthetic of this game. It looks really cute and I am a sucker for retro art styles. So this is like a yes for me for sure. Even though I'm not like the biggest multiplayer gamer out there. And then Out of Words, this was also shown at the Game Awards, but it was teased at Summer Games Fest, I believe, before that. It's a stop motion platform adventure game. Any game that has this amount of effort put into it where the animations are crafted by hand and by humans. I mean, yes, I think that amount of effort deserves to be recognized, and I definitely want to give a chance at a game that seems to have put in a lot of work in this way. So we just went through all the games, but one game that I do plan to play that's not on here in 2026 is also MapleStory Classic World. MapleStory was my childhood MMO, and when this was announced, I like screamed my head off because I was so excited. When MapleStory Classic comes out, I am seriously considering taking off work or not seeing people for like a week because that's how excited and hyped I am. I've probably sunk like 1,000 hours into that MMO and I would gladly do it again in my adult life just to feel like I'm healing my inner child again and experience that childhood nostalgia. I can't wait to like PQ and run into people at like the free market again. So these are all the games that I plan to already play in 2026, and that doesn't even include like unannounced games this year. It's a lot. I typically play like 1 to 2 games a month, so we'll see, I guess, if this is realistic. But the thing is, I already feel like this is already me being selective of games that I definitely want to play, but maybe this list will end up shrinking even more. And I think also looking at this, it's going to be another year of really promising indie titles for me, but I think there will be moments where AA will really shine, like Capcom this year for me for sure, and Nintendo ramping up their Switch 2 games. So now that we've gone through that list, now I want to talk through what I'm basically just going to call resolutions to make it easy. My resolutions when it comes to approaching gaming as a hobby in the coming year. If you've watched my short form content, these might be a little redundant from what I've said in those videos, but hopefully you don't watch every single piece of my short form content so it doesn't feel like super repetitive. But I did want to combine multiple videos into this one section here to just talk through all of them. So starting with the first one, we have committing to start games to finish them with no super long breaks in between. So as someone who plays a lot of like single player story driven narrative games that could be like 40 hours to 100 hours long, I think that when I drop games like this or I take long breaks in between to finish them, it makes it really hard to get back into them because of that story component. A game like this for me right now is Metaphor ReFantazio, where I am probably like a little over 50 hours into that game, and I've honestly forgotten a lot of details when it comes to that game. I know what's about to happen in the story, but I've forgotten details surrounding like the character backstories, the sub-stories, and even the major arcs leading up to that point. And I think knowing that is harder for me to get back into the game rather than even starting the game itself. And I'm someone who hates restarting games. I hate the thought of like basically wiping out 50 hours of gameplay. So this year I'm putting in writing that I'm committing to finishing games when I start them so I don't run into these issues in the future. If I do fail at this resolution and I end up doing this, I think there are 2 solutions that come to mind. This one actually, my comments suggested to me that you keep a little notebook and you write down specific like story beats or major things that happen up to the point where you took a break, so you don't forget a lot of the stuff that happened. And then the second thing is, if I do ease myself back into a game, I start out playing maybe in easy mode just so I can learn the ropes about how the game works again, because even like game mechanics I tend to forget when I take long breaks. I just hate the feeling of these games being in the back of my mind, me constantly thinking I need to get back into this, I need to get back to this. So I'm just going to try to avoid that altogether. My second resolution is having one handheld game I'm obsessed with year round. And that basically means having one handheld game that I'm always like constantly reaching for when I have downtime. I've mentioned this a few times at this point, but I've been doing this a lot with Octopath Traveler 0 with my Switch 2. I've pretty much like replaced my phone time with playing my Switch 2 like this, and I think it cuts down on a lot of my phone time, my doom scrolling, and yes, it is like replacing screen time with another screen time, but I just feel so much more present and fulfilled playing a game versus like being on TikTok. Compared to my phone, I like the feeling of not knowing how much time has passed, just being immersed in a game on my handheld. And I think I just realized how much handheld gaming helps me get through my backlog compared to console gaming. I actually just got a Steam Deck. This arrived in the mail yesterday and I'm already using it. I'm playing a game called Consume Me right now, which I have been loving. I think playing that game also has convinced me that some games just, I feel like I have a better experience playing those games on handheld. I actually think Consume Me is a perfect handheld game, and I think my review for Consume Me will actually be higher because my experience playing on handheld will be better than if I played it on a PC. But yeah, this is a year where I'm super just like getting back into handheld again, and now that I have a Steam Deck, I'm also just excited to see how much damage I can do on my backlog with this. My third resolution is to stop picking up every game that is trendy and popular or what everybody else is playing, and just prioritize what I want to play. I think this one is really relatable for gaming content creators, where it is true that if you capitalize on a game's momentum and hype, your views will do better and like you just will get more attention as you play the game that everybody else is playing. And I generally thought that while I do participate in like the hype of a game's popularity and new releases, I think that I've always thought of myself as someone who was generally self-aware enough to not get too caught up in this, where I'm not going to play popular games that are like super against my typical taste or look up what the most popular streamers are playing and pick my games out of that. But I do think that I just bought games without really thinking about it last year. Like in the fall season, I picked up Ghost of Yotei and Hades 2, and now thinking about it, I'm like, why did I even do that? When I picked up Ghost of Yotei, I was on vacation in Asia and there was no way for me to play that game right on release. When I picked up Hades 2, I don't know why I just didn't wait, because I haven't even played the first Hades, so I should probably play the first Hades first before committing to buying the second game. Again, it was me like thinking that I'll eventually get to this, so I should just buy it now. I just feel like I am really trying to let go of that mindset. These games will be around. A lot of these games also go on sale, so I just like wasted money doing that. And I think I just have to admit at some point it is quite literally impossible to get around to every major release that happens year round as someone who does not do this full time. There's also a part of me that's like, I don't want all of my time spent on gaming to always be on new releases. I want to play like a 20-year-old game sometimes, or like the classic games that I never got to, like, I don't know, Metal Gear Solid. Like, I've never played a game from that series before. And I don't want to develop this like reluctance to play a game just because it's old and not as many people care about it. There's also games that I just like want to replay every now and then, like Baldur's Gate 3. I never got to do like a Dark Urge run. I think there's still a part of me that's like learning to let go and sacrifice that time that could be spent creating all this like fun content about like the trendy, popular, flashy new game that just came out for like the classic or older titles, because it's what I genuinely want to play, and I don't have to always listen to the devil on my shoulder saying like, you could really capitalize on this game's momentum right now, and feeling obligated to play a game for that sake. My fourth resolution is to rent more games from the library. I talked about this multiple times in the last year, but I started doing this in 2025 and I'll definitely be doing it in 2026. There are people in my comments saying like, I had no idea that libraries carry games, and you'd be surprised at how many local libraries carry like games that just came out. I'm still figuring out more libraries in my local area that carry games, and I think it would be fun to just like explore the different libraries to see what kind of games they carry. It just sounds like a fun activity to like make a weekend out of it. Just like explore different libraries around your area and look at the catalog they have. Maybe pick up some books while you're there too, because I do think that I need to spend more time reading books this year too, because I also think that that will help me appreciate games a little bit more too, since I play so many story-driven games. And also, just stating the obvious, games are obviously free if you borrow them from the library, so this is going to help save so much money. I'm also a pretty like anti-subscription model person, so I don't pay for things like the PlayStation or Xbox passes. Not that there's anything wrong with subscribing to those things, especially if you get your value out of it, but I've just been kind of raised to be scared of seeing all the subscriptions stack up month to month. So if you are looking to cut back on things like that, I think that you should also consider borrowing from the library to kind of cut down on those kind of costs. Oh, and another thing about the library is I think it does encourage people to get through their backlog games a little bit more, because naturally with libraries, you have a limit on how long you can borrow. Like when I borrowed Signalis, I was only able to borrow it for 2 weeks. So naturally, I wanted to beat it before that deadline. So knowing you have like a time limit, I think will help you get through these titles a little bit more. Number 5 is something that I've already been doing, and it's picking up games from my purchase backlog list and buying games during sales. So putting aside games that I bought upon release, I don't really count that there. I bought like maybe like 3 games in the past 2 Steam sales, which is kind of on the right track. I think I gradually started to not really care about Steam sales as much, because I know that these games go on sale pretty often anyways, so I don't feel like the urgency to buy games. And looking at my backlog list now, I think there's like 30 or so games that I still need to get through, so there really isn't any point for me to buying more and more games. I know this is a big resolution for a lot of you, because I've seen it in my comments, people constantly saying like, yeah, why do I always feel tempted to pick up games on sale when I have this huge backlog list already? I know it is so tempting to buy the shiny new thing in your cart rather than just like look at the things already that you've purchased in your backlog. I think this is a thing that comes with practice though, that if you gradually stop buying games on sale, like it becomes easier, and you realize just like the games on your wish list actually go on sale so much, especially on Steam. So you really don't need to be buying games right when they go on sale. But I think if you're even selective with the games that are on sale, I think it puts that intention back into gaming with the titles you pick up. So asking yourself questions like, oh, do I see myself actually playing and finishing this game through, or am I just picking this up because everybody else said it was a great game? Are there parts about the gameplay that really resonate with you, or are there aspects of it that you really dislike? I think naturally these questions come up when you're not picking up every single game that's on sale, and then you can curate a list of games that you can actually see yourself playing through. My 6th resolution is not feeling bad about DNFing games. DNF is just a term that is used mostly for books, but I think it applies to games as well. When I said this resolution before, someone did say that it seems contradictory to the first resolution of like committing to finishing games when I start them. But to clarify, I think this just means that when I start games, I have the commitment of finishing them, but if I really do not like the game, or if I don't vibe with it and I don't have a desire to continue anymore, then I shouldn't feel bad about dropping them. It does feel bad to drop a game when you spent like a chunk of money on it, but also at the same time, I am learning to let go of this arbitrary tracker I have in my head where it just feels good to cross off a game on a list and put it on my completed games list, even if I don't like the game. I think in the past year, I felt really good about like constantly adding to my completed games list. Like, oh, it feels so good to say that I finished this many games this year. But should I prioritize quantity over quality and just like meeting arbitrary goals like this over my actual experience playing these games? You know, everybody loves the list, and I think there was a genuine part of me that did have fun curating these lists and feeling good about adding games to my completed games list. But again, prioritizing maybe quantity over quality or just like keeping arbitrary goals like this, I think goes against my intention when it comes to investing time into gaming. So I'm learning to forego this pretty much completely. And while I do have a lot of fun logging my games that I beat on like backlog, for example, let's learn to let go of these like arbitrary goals of like playing all these types of games and saying I beat them when I know that certain games on that list isn't quite resonating with me. I also know that a lot of games that vibe with other people isn't always going to be meant for me. Blueprints last year was a game that I know resonated with many people last year, but it was one of the games that I dropped because I just didn't have the patience for it. And I don't think I need to feel bad knowing that this game wasn't meant for me. We all have a limited time when it comes to this hobby, so we shouldn't be spending too much of it on an experience that we're not resonating with. My 7th resolution is giving games a chance if they interest you despite review scores. This one is tricky because I think there is merit to review scores and review write-ups because they could clarify things that you feel iffy on for when it comes to first impressions of a game, or if you're just like unsure about a game, whether it's meant for you, it could convince you or not convince you to pick up the game. I think it's fair to think of reviews that way, but where I think it's kind of like, you know, fuck the critics and forget review scores, I think where this applies is when I discover like really niche indie games or something. We shouldn't think too hard on a review score for a really silly indie game that is about frying eggs or something, you know, like with Arctic Eggs that I played last year, I couldn't give two shits about the review scores for that because it just looked like a funny game where you just cook eggs. I think this mostly applies personally for like experimental indie games for me, where I'll see like a promising concept or an intriguing title and be like, fuck yeah, let's just try it because it seems interesting, and not care so much about like review scores or the Steam ranking or something like that. My 8th resolution, which is a big one, is not letting the internet or fandoms ruin your opinion of a game. I think we've all gone through this before where we'll see the super popular game get super shit on because now it's uncool to like the popular thing, or people who make you feel embarrassed or ashamed or bully you because you seem to like the game that should be heavily criticized or something like that. I think Expedition 33 was a great example of this last year where, you know, it became so popular that it became basic to like the game, or people who were just straight up condescending to people who liked the game because they thought it was like super overrated and there were a million things to criticize about it. I remember playing Mouthwashing last year, and I remember being really annoyed at the conversation surrounding that game because apparently when something gets really popular, it becomes lame to like it. Like, no, the game is still good. It's just that a lot of people who like discussed it became really annoying. I remember when I said I liked Me-Side last year and people were automatically saying that you have no taste because it's like a gooner anime game, where it's like, you didn't even play the game and you're just like saying things like that. So I would say this is a mindset that I already put into practice, but I think I want to be even bolder with it, of sticking to like my opinions and feelings. It's hard not to be annoyed by these people, but I'm certainly trying my hardest to not let these kind of conversations sway my opinion on a game. My 9th resolution is not to like entirely avoid games just because of its genre. I've said previously that I don't think I'm a person who really loves Metroidvanias, but one of my favorite games that I played last year was Silksong. Aesthetically, even though sci-fi isn't really a genre, I've always not really loved like the sci-fi setting, but someone pointed out that some of my top titles last year were all sci-fi titles. In gaming, I think genre labeling is becoming less and less important these days because games under a certain genre can look vastly different from each other. Even though games like Expedition 33 and Persona 5 are both turn-based games, they are pretty vastly different experiences gameplay wise. And I think we saw a lot of people kind of not give a shit about genre labels when it comes to games like Expedition 33. Actually, I had a lot of people tell me like, I don't usually like turn-based games, but I love Expedition 33. I think overall, overlooking genre labels and not putting too much emphasis on them is helping me become a little bit more open-minded with trying a variety of games out. And my 10th and final resolution is adopting the phrase, "This game is not for me," over "This game sucks." I think in this video, I've already done this multiple times, but I definitely think that there is a difference between saying this game isn't meant for me versus this game sucks. I can come up with so many games that I think are not meant for me, but I admit that are good games. I think people who participate in gaming discourse can learn to critique better and just like learn the nuances of learning that a game isn't for you versus genuinely thinking it's bad, and learning that games that don't resonate with you doesn't automatically make it a bad game. Learning to recognize these differences, I think, is just going to make the gaming discourse and conversations less miserable and more productive. And that is the whole list when it comes to my resolutions approaching gaming in the new year. If I had to place an overall theme on these resolutions, the word would be intention. With these resolutions, I see myself being a little bit more selective with the titles I play, more valuable with how I spend my time gaming, protecting my peace when it comes to this hobby, and not letting too much external influence get in the way of that. I think at the core of it, I want to reclaim gaming for myself again in a way after, being like a content creator and being in the gaming space for quite a bit now. I think I've just been doing this for so long that I kind of understand what doesn't and does resonate with me when it comes to gaming. And overall, just learning to prioritize myself again when it comes to participating in this hobby above all. If any of these resolutions resonate with you or you'd like to participate in some of them as well, I would love to know which ones resonated with you. And of course, you can copy whatever you like or adjust them to your own needs. And I'm excited to see how putting these resolutions to practice personally is going to change gaming for me in 2026. That's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any thoughts, leave them in the comments below. I would love to read them. Let me know what games you guys are also excited to play in 2026, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.